Good afternoon, everyone. This is Bianca Kinol of BS Ed Social Studies 2. For today's discussion, I will discuss to you the Magna Carta of Women. And a little favor, please bear with me for this topic can be a long ride discussion. So let's begin.
Magna Carta of Women, or also known as the Republic Act number 9710, signed August 14, 2009 into law. Background: Magna Carta of Women was 7 years in the making. The legislative debates started in 2002 and finally signed into law last August 14, 2009. And it took effect on September 15, 2009. IRR adopted by PCW Commissioner on March 30, 2010. Senator Jambi Madrigal, the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Youth, Women and Family Relations, principal author. Senator Pia Cayetano is the principal sponsor. Signing of Magna Carta of Women, starring the former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Now, what is Magna Carta of Women? Magna Carta of Women, it is a comprehensive women's human rights law that seeks to eliminate discrimination against women by recognizing, protecting, fulfilling, and promoting the rights of Filipino women, especially those in the marginalized sectors. When we talk about Magna Carta of Women, it is about recognizing and protecting women's rights and banning discrimination against women. And when we talk about marginalized sectors, these are the following: urban poor indigenous people, children, women, senior citizens, solo parents, Moro Islamic faith migrant workers, person with disabilities, fisher folk, small farmers and rural workers, workers in the formal economy, and workers in the informal economy. And these sectors will be discussed later on as we go on to our discussion. So now let us discuss these sections of Magna Carta of Women. First chapter is the General Provisions, Section 1, short title. This act shall be known as the Magna Carta of Women. Chapter 1, Section 2 is the Declaration of Policy. It is recognizing that the economic, political, and socio-cultural realities affect women's current condition. The state affirms the role of women in nation building and ensures the substantive equality of women and men. In this section, it promotes empowerment of women and pursue equal opportunities for women and also men, and ensure equal access to resources and to development results and outcome. Further, this section, Chapter 1, Section 3 of Magna Carta of Women is the Principles of Human Rights of Women. Human rights are universal and inalienable. All people in the world are entitled to them. The universality of human rights is encompassed in the words of Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states that all human beings are free and equal in dignity and rights. What does it mean? So, it means that all individuals are equal as human beings by virtue of the inherent dignity of each human person. So, no one, therefore, should suffer discrimination on the basis of ethnicity, gender, age, language, sexual orientation, race, color, religion, political or other opinion, national, social or geographical origin, disability, property, birth, or other status as established by human rights standards. Also, this section means that all people have the right to participate in and access information relating to the decision-making processes that affect their lives and well-being. Next chapter, A. Women Empowerment. It is refers to the provision, availability, and accessibility of opportunities, services, and observance of human rights which enable women to actively participate and contribute to the political, economic, social, cultural development of the nation as well as those which shall provide them equal access to ownership, management, and control of production and material and informational resources and benefits in the family, community, and society. B. Letter B is the discrimination against women. This refers to any gender-based distinction, exclusion, or restriction which has the effect or purpose of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise by women, irrespective of their marital status, on a basis of equality of men and women, of human rights and fundamental freedoms in the political, economic, social, cultural, civil, or any other field. It includes any act or omission, including by law, policy, administrative measure, or practice that directly or indirectly excludes or restricts women in the recognition of and promotion of their rights and their access to and enjoyment of opportunities, benefits, or privileges. So finally, that discrimination compounded by or intersecting with other grounds, status, or condition such as ethnicity, age, poverty, or religion shall be considered discrimination against women under this act. Letter C is marginalization. It refers to a condition where a whole category of people is excluded from useful and meaningful participation in political, economic, social, and cultural life. And marginalized refers to the basic, disadvantaged, or vulnerable persons or groups who are mostly living in poverty and have little or no access to land and other resources, basic social and economic services such as healthcare, education, water, and sanitation, employment and livelihood opportunities, housing, social security, physical infrastructure, and the justice system. So when we say marginalization, it is a particular group of people living in a particular society is out of social order by denying them even the most primary human rights, while the marginalized is the people or the person is treated insignificant mostly by the people living in the society, or he is treated insignificant or peripheral. So chapter 2, definition of terms. These include but are not limited to women in the following sectors and groups. First, small farmers and rural workers. It refers to those who are engaged directly or indirectly in small farms and forest areas, workers in the commercial farms and plantations, whether paid or unpaid, regular or season-bound. These shall include but are not limited to A. Small farmers who own or are still amortizing for lands that is not more than 3 hectares, tenants, leaseholders, and stewards. And B. Rural workers who are either wage earners, self-employed, unpaid family workers directly and personally engaged in agriculture, small-scale mining, handicrafts, and other related farm and off-farm activities. Second is the fisher folk. It refers to those directly and indirectly engaged in taking, culturing, or processing fishery or aquatic resources. It is the or these are or this includes women engaged in fishing in municipal waters, coastal and marine areas, women workers in commercial fishing and aquaculture, vendors and processors of fish and coastal products, and subsistence producers such as shell gatherers, managers, and producers of mangrove resources and other related producers. 3 is the urban poor. It refers to those residing in urban and urbanizable slum or blighted areas, with or without the benefit of security of abode, where the income of the head of the family cannot afford in a sustained manner or to provide for the family's basic needs of food, health, education, housing, and other essentials in life. Number 4, workers in formal economy. It refers to those who are employed by any person acting directly or indirectly in the interest of an employer in relation to an employee and shall include the government and all its branches, subdivisions, and instrumentalities, all government-owned and controlled corporations and institutions, as well as non-profit private institutions or organizations. 5. Workers in informal economy. Refers to self-employed, occasionally or personally hired, subcontracted, paid, and unpaid family workers, in household incorporated and incorporated enterprises, including home workers, micro-entrepreneurs, and producers and operators of sari-sari stores, and all other categories who suffer from violation of workers' rights. 6. Migrant workers refers to Filipinos who are to be engaged and engage or are engaged or have been engaged in a remunerated activity in a state of which they are not legal residents, whether documented or undocumented. 7 is the indigenous peoples. Refers to a group of people or homogeneous societies identified by self-ascription and ascription by other, who have continuously lived as organized community on communally bounded and defined territory and who have under claims of ownership since time immemorial, occupied, possessed customs, traditions, and other distinctive cultural traits, or have, through resistance to political, social, and cultural inroads of colonization, non-indigenous religions and culture, became historically differentiated from the majority of Filipinos. 8 is the Moro. Refers to native peoples who have historically inhabited Mindanao, Palawan, and Sulu, who are largely of the Islamic faith. 9. Children. Refers to those who are below 18 years of age or over but are unable to fully take care of themselves or protect themselves from abuse, neglect, cruelty, exploitation, or discrimination because of a physical or mental disability or condition. 10. Senior citizens. Refers to those 60 years of age and above. 11. Persons with disabilities. Refers to those who are suffering from restriction or different abilities as a result of mental, physical or sensory impairment to perform an activity in the manner or within the range considered normal for a human being. And number 12 is solo parents. This refers to those who fall under the category of a solo parent defined under Republic Act number 8972, otherwise known as the Solo Parents Welfare Act of 2000. Letter E, substantive equality. It refers to the full and equal enjoyment of rights and freedoms contemplated under this act. It encompasses de jure and de facto equality and also equality in outcomes. When we say de jure, it is about it is by right, and de facto means in fact, which means all women have the firm basis in reality to be treated equally in the society. Letter F, gender equality, refers to the principle asserting the equality of men and women and their right to enjoy equal conditions, realizing their full human potentials to contribute to and benefit from the results of development, and with the state recognizing that all human beings are free and equal in dignity and rights. Letter G, gender equity, refers to the policies, instruments, programs, services, and actions that address the disadvantaged position of women in society by providing preferential treatment and affirmative action. Gender equity means that regardless of their gender or sex, men and women shall or have the rights to work without discriminating each other. Letter H, gender and development or GOD, refers to the development perspective and process that are participatory and empowering, equitable, sustainable, free from violence, respectful of human rights, supportive of self-determination and actualization of human potentials. Letter I, gender mainstreaming. This refers to the strategy for making women's as well as men's concerns and experiences an integral dimension of the design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of policies and programs in all political, economic, and societal spheres so that women and men benefit equally and inequality is not perpetuated. This means that the process of assessing the implications for women and men of any planned action, including legislation, policies, or programs in all areas and at all levels, Letter J, temporary special measures, refers to a variety of legislative, executive, administrative, and regulatory instruments, policies, and practices aimed at accelerating this de facto equality of women in specific areas. Letter K, violence against women, refers to any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. Further, It shall be understood to encompass but not limited to the following. Number 1. Physical, sexual, psychological, and economic violence occurring in the family, including battering, sexual abuse of female children in the household, dowry-related violence, marital rape, and other traditional practices harmful to women, non-spousal violence, and violence related to exploitation. Number 2. Physical, sexual, and psychological violence occurring within the general community, including rape, sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and intimidation at work, in educational institutions, and elsewhere, trafficking in women, and prostitution. And lastly, number 3, physical, sexual, and psychological violence perpetrated or condoned by the state wherever it occurs. It also includes acts of violence against women as defined in Republic Acts number 9208 and 9262. Number or letter L is women in the military. Refers to women employed in the military, both in the major and technical services, who are performing combat and or non-combat functions, providing security to the state, and protecting the people from various forms of threat. It also includes women, trainees in all military training institutions. Letter M, social protection. This refers to the policies and programs that seek to reduce poverty and vulnerability to risks and enhance the social status and rights of all women, especially the marginalized, by promoting and protecting livelihood and employment, protecting against hazards and sudden loss of income, and improving people's capacity to manage risk. Its components are labor market programs, social insurance, social welfare, and social safety nets. Chapter 3 is the duties related to the human rights of women. In this chapter, the state, private sector, society in general, and all individuals shall contribute to the recognition, respect, and promotion of the rights of women defined and guaranteed under this act. So, Section 5. The state as the primary duty bearer. The state as the primary duty bearer shall, letter A, refrain from discriminating against women and violating their rights. Stop oneself from doing discrimination against women. Letter B, protect women against discrimination and from violation of their rights by private corporations, entities, and individuals. And letter C, promote and fulfill the rights of women in all spheres, including their rights to substantive equality and non-discrimination. With this, the state shall fulfill these duties through law, policy and regulatory instruments, administrative guidelines, and other appropriate measures, including temporary special measures. Section 6 is duties of the state agencies and instrumentalities. These duties of the state shall extend to all state agencies, offices, and instrumentalities at all levels and government-owned and controlled corporations, subject to the Constitution and pertinent laws, policies, or administrative guidelines that define specific duties of state agencies and entities concerned. Section 7 is suppletory effect. This chapter shall be deemed integrated into and be suppletory to the other provisions of this Act, particularly those that guarantee specific rights to women and define specific roles and require specific conduct of state organs. Rights and Empowerment. Section 8. Human Rights of Women. All rights in the Constitution and those rights recognized under international instruments duly signed and ratified by the Philippines in consonance with Philippine law shall be rights of women under this Act to be enjoyed without discrimination. Section 9. Protection from violence. The state shall ensure that all women shall be protected from all forms of violence as provided for in existing laws. Agencies of government shall give priority to the defense and protection of women against gender-based offenses and help women attain justice and healing. Towards this end, measures to prosecute and reform offenders shall likewise be pursued. Letter A. Within the next 5 years, there shall be an incremental increase in the recruitment and training of women in the police force, forensics and medical, legal services, and social work services availed of by women who are victims of gender-related offenses until 50% of the personnel thereof shall be women. Letter B. Women shall have the right to protection and security in situations of armed conflict and militarization. Towards this end, they shall be protected from all forms of gender-based violence, particularly rape and other forms of sexual abuse, and all forms of violence in situations and armed conflict. Letter C. All government personnel involved in the protection and defense of women against gender-based violence shall undergo a mandatory training on human rights and gender sensitivity pursuant to this Act. Letter D. All local government units shall establish a violence against women's desk in every barangay to ensure that violence against women cases are fully addressed in a gender-responsive manner. Section 10. Women affected by disasters, calamities, and other crisis situations. Women have the right to protection and security in times of disasters, calamities, and other crisis situations, especially in all phases of relief, recovery, rehabilitation, and construction efforts. This means that the state shall provide for immediate humanitarian assistance, allocation of resources, and early resettlement if necessary. Also, they address the particular needs of women from a gender perspective to ensure their full protection from sexual exploitation and other sexual and gender-based violence committed against them. Section 11 is the participation and representation. The state shall undertake temporary special measures to accelerate the participation and equitable representation of women in all spheres of society, particularly in the decision-making and policy-making processes in government and private entities to fully realize their role as agents beneficiaries of development. Further, the state shall institute the following affirmative action mechanisms so that women can participate meaningfully in the formulation, implementation, and evaluation of policies, plans, and programs for national, regional, and local government. Local development, rather. So, letter A, empowerment within the civil service. Within the next 5 years, the number of women in third-level positions in government shall be incrementally increased to achieve a 50-50 gender balance. Letter B, development councils and planning bodies. This is to ensure the participation of women in all levels of development planning and program implementation. At least 40% of membership of all development councils from the regional, provincial, city, municipal, and barangay levels shall be composed of women. Letter C, other policy and decision-making bodies. Women's groups shall also be represented in international, national, and local special and decision-making bodies. Letter D, international bodies. The state shall take all appropriate measures to ensure the opportunity of women on equal terms with men and without any discrimination to represent their governments at the international level and participate in the work of international organizations. Letter E, integration of women in political parties. The state shall provide incentives to political parties with women's agenda. It shall likewise encourage the integration of women in their leadership hierarchy, internal policy-making structures, appointive and electoral nominating processes, and letter F is the private sector. The state shall take measures to encourage women leadership in the private sector in the form of incentives. Section 12. Equal treatment before the law. The state shall take steps to review and, when necessary, amend and or repeal existing laws that are discriminatory to women within 3 years from the effectivity of this act. Section 13. Equal access and elimination of discrimination in education, scholarships, and training. Letter A. The state shall ensure the gender stereotypes and images in educational materials and curricula are adequately and appropriately revised. Gender-sensitive language shall be used at all times. Capacity building on gender and development, or GAD, peace and human rights, education for teachers, and all those involved in the education sector shall be pursued toward this end. Further, partnerships between and among players of the education sector, including the private sector, churches, and faith groups shall be encouraged. Letter B. Enrollment of women in non-traditional skills training in vocational and tertiary levels shall be encouraged. Letter C. Expulsion and non-readmission of women faculty due to pregnancy outside of marriage shall be outlawed. No school shall turn out of or refuse admission to a female student solely on the account of her having contracted pregnancy outside of marriage during her term in school. Section 14. Women in sports. In this section, the state shall develop, establish, and strengthen programs for the participation of women and girl children in competitive and non-competitive sports as a means to achieve excellence, promote physical and social well-being, eliminate gender role stereotyping, and provide equal access to the full benefits of development for all persons regardless of sex, gender identity, and other similar factors. In this section, for this purpose, all sports-related organizations shall create guidelines that will establish and integrate affirmative action as a strategy and gender equality as a framework in planning and implementing their policies, budgets, programs, and activities relating to the participation of women and girls in sports. Section 15. Women in the military. The state shall pursue appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination of women in the military, police, and other similar services, including revising or abolishing policies and practices that restrict women from availing of both combat and non-combat training that are open to men, or from taking on functions other than administrative tasks, such as engaging in combat, security-related, or field operations. This means that women in the military, police, and other similar services shall be provided with the same right to employment as men on equal conditions. Equally, they shall be accorded the same capacity as men to act in and enter into contracts, including marriage. Section 16. Non-discriminatory and non-derogatory portrayal of women in media and film. In this section, the state shall formulate policies and programs for the advancement of women in collaboration with government and non-government media-related organizations. It means that it shall likewise endeavor to raise the consciousness of the general public in recognizing the dignity of women and the role and contribution of women in the family, community, and the society through the strategic use of mass media. So, Section 17 is the women's right to health. Letter A is comprehensive health services. The state, at all times, provide a comprehensive, culture-sensitive, and gender-responsive health services and programs covering all stages of a woman's life cycle and which addresses the major causes of women's mortality and morbidity, provided that in the provision for comprehensive health services, due respect shall be accorded to women's religious convictions, the rights of the spouses to found a family in accordance with their religious convictions, and the demands of responsible parenthood, and the right of women to protection from hazardous drugs, devices, interventions, and substances. Access to the following services shall be ensured. Number 1. Maternal care to include pre- and post-natal services to address pregnancy and infant health and nutrition. Number 2. Promotion of breastfeeding. Number 3. Responsible, ethical, legal, safe, and effective methods of family planning. Number 4. Family and state collaboration in youth, sexuality education, and health services without prejudice to the primary right and duty of parents to educate their children. Number 5, prevention and management of reproductive tract infections, including sexually transmitted diseases, HIV, and AIDS. Number 6, prevention and management of reproductive tract cancers like breast and cervical cancers, and other gynecological conditions and disorders. Number 7, prevention of abortion and management of pregnancy-related complications. Number 8, in cases of violence against women and children victims and survivors shall be provided with comprehensive health services that include psychosocial, therapeutic, medical, and legal interventions and assistance towards healing, recovery, and empowerment. Number 9, prevention and management of infertility and sexual dysfunction pursuant to ethical norms and medical standards. Number 10, care of the elderly women beyond their childbearing years. And lastly, number 11, management, treatment, and intervention of mental health problems of women and girls. In addition, healthy lifestyle activities are encouraged and promoted through programs and projects as strategies in the prevention of diseases. Letter B, comprehensive health information and education. The state shall provide women in all sectors with appropriate, timely, complete, and accurate information and education on all the above stated aspects of women's health in government education and training programs with due regard to the following. Number 1, the natural and primary right duty of parents in the rearing of the youth and the development of moral character, and the right of children to be brought up in an atmosphere of morality and rectitude, of the enrichment and strengthening of character. Number 2, the formulation of a person's sexuality that affirms human dignity. And number 3, ethical, legal, safe, and effective family planning methods, including fertility awareness. Section 18, special leave benefits for women. In this section, a woman employee having rendered continuous aggregate employment service of at least 6 years, 6 months for the last 12 months, shall be entitled to a special leave benefit of 2 months with full pay based on her gross monthly compensation following surgery caused by gynecological disorders. Section 19, equal rights in all matters relating to marriage and family relations. In this section, the state shall take all appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination against women in all matters relating to marriage and family relations, and shall ensure: letter A, the same rights to enter into and leave marriages or common law relationships referred to under the Family Code without prejudice to personal or religious beliefs. Letter B, the same rights to choose freely a spouse and to enter into marriage only with their free and full consent. The betrothal or the engagement and the marriage of a child shall have no legal effect. Letter C, the joint decision in the number and spacing of their children, and to have access to the information, education, and means to enable them to exercise their rights or these rights. Letter D, the same personal rights between spouses or common law spouses, including the right to choose freely a profession and an occupation. Letter E. The same rights for both spouses or common law spouses in respect of the ownership, acquisition, management, administration, enjoyment, and disposition of property. Letter F. The same rights to properties and resources, whether titled or not, and inheritance, whether formal or customary, and lastly, letter G. Women shall have equal rights with men to acquire, change, or retain their nationality. The state shall ensure in particular that neither marriage to an alien nor change of nationality by the husband during marriage shall automatically change the nationality of the wife, render her stateless, or force upon her the nationality of the husband. Various statuses of other countries concerning dual citizenship that may be enjoyed equally by women and men shall likewise be considered. Chapter 5. Rights and Empowerment of Marginalized Sectors. Women in marginalized sectors are hereby guaranteed in all civil, political, social, and economic rights recognized, promoted, and protected under existing laws, including but not limited to the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, the Urban Development and Housing Act, the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law, the Fisheries Code, the Labor Code, the Migrant Workers Act, the Solo Parents Welfare Act, and the Social Reform and Poverty Alleviation Act. Section 20. Food security and productive resources. In this section, the state recognizes the contribution of women to food production and shall ensure its sustainability and sufficiency with the active participation of women. So, the state shall guarantee at all times the availability in the market of safe and health giving food to satisfy the dietary needs of the population, giving particular attention to the specific needs of poor, girl, children, and marginalized women, especially pregnant and lactating mothers and their young children. To further address this, the state shall ensure, letter A, right to food. The state shall guarantee the availability of food in quantity and quality sufficient to satisfy the dietary needs of individuals, the physical and economic accessibility for everyone to adequate food that is culturally acceptable and free from unsafe substances and culturally accepted, and the accurate and substantial information to the availability of food, including the right to food, accurate and truthful information about safe and health-giving foods and how to produce and have regular and easy access to them. Letter B. Right to resources for food production. The state shall ensure or guarantee women a vital role in food production by giving priority to their rights to land, credit, and infrastructure support, technical training, and technological and marketing assistance. So in order to achieve this priority, the state shall promote women-friendly technology as a high priority activity in agriculture and shall promote the right to adequate food by proactively engaging in activities intended to strengthen access to, utilization of, and receipt of accurate and substantial information on resources and means to ensure women's livelihood, including food security. Number 1. Equal status shall be given to women and men, whether married or not, in the titling of the land and issuance of stewardship contracts and patents. Number 2. Equal treatment shall be given to women and men beneficiaries of the Agrarian Reform Program, wherein the vested right of a woman agrarian reform beneficiary is defined by a woman's relationship to tillage, example, her direct and indirect contribution to the development of the land. Number 3. Customary rights of women to the land, including access to and control of the fruits and benefits, shall be recognized in circumstances where private ownership is not possible, such as ancestral domain claims. Number 4. Information and assistance in claiming rights to the land shall be made available to women at all times. Number 5. Equal rights to women to the enjoyment, use, and management of land, water, and other natural resources within their communities or ancestral domains. Number 6. Equal access to the use and management of fisheries and aquatic resources, and all the rights and benefits accruing to the stakeholders in the fishing industry. Number 7. Equal status shall be given to women and men in the issuance of stewardship or lease agreements and other fishery rights that may be granted for the use and management of coastal and aquatic resources. Number 8. There shall be no discrimination against women in the deputization of fish wardens. Number 9. Women-friendly and sustainable agriculture technology shall be designed based on accessibility and viability in consultation with women's organizations. Number 10. Access to small farmer-based and controlled seeds production and distribution shall be ensured and protected. Number 11. Indigenous practices of women in seed storage and cultivation shall be recognized, encouraged, and protected. Number 12. Equal rights shall be given to women to be members of farmers' organization to ensure wider access to and control of the means of production. Number 13. Provide opportunities for empowering women fishers to be involved in the control and management not only of the catch and production of aquamarine resources, but also to engage in entrepreneurial activities which will add value to production and marketing ventures. And 14. Provide economic opportunities for the indigenous women, particularly access to market for their produce. Section 21. Right to housing. The state shall develop housing programs for women that are localized, simple, accessible with potable water and electricity, secure with viable employment opportunities and affordable amortization. So with this, in this regard, the state shall consult women and involve them in community planning and development, especially in matters pertaining to land use, zoning, and relocation. So Section 22. Right to decent work. The state shall progressively realize and ensure decent work standards for women and in women that involve the creation of jobs of acceptable quality in conditions of freedom, equity, and security and human dignity. Letter A. Decent work involves opportunities for work that are productive and fairly remunerative as family living wage, security in the workplace, and social protection for families, better prospects for personal development and social integration, freedom for people to express their concerns, organize, participate in the decisions that affect their lives, and equality of opportunity and treatment for all women and men. Letter B. The state shall further ensure, number 1, support services and gears to protect them from occupational and health hazards taking into account women's maternal functions. Number 2, support services that will enable women to balance their family obligations and work responsibilities, including but not limited to the establishment of the daycare centers and breastfeeding stations at the workplace, and providing maternity leave pursuant to the labor code and other pertinent laws. Number 3, membership in unions regardless of status of employment and place of employment. And lastly, number 4, respect for the observance of indigenous peoples' cultural practices even in the workplace. Letter C. In recognition of temporary nature of overseas work, the state shall exert all efforts to address the causes of out-migration by developing local employment and other economic opportunities for women, and by introducing measures to curb violence and forced involuntary displacement of local women. Section 23. Right to livelihood, credit, capital, and technology. The state shall ensure that women are provided with the following. Letter A. Equal access to formal sources of credit and capital. Letter B. Equal share to the produce of farms and aquatic resources. And lastly, letter C. Employment opportunities for returning women migrant workers, taking into account their skills and qualifications. Corollarily, the state shall also promote skills and entrepreneurship development of returning women migrant workers. Section 24. Right to education and training. The state shall ensure the following. Letter A. Women migrant workers have the opportunity to undergo skills training, if they so desire, before taking on a foreign job, and possible training upon return to the country. Letter B. Gender-sensitive training and seminars. And letter C. Equal opportunities in scholarships based on merit and fitness, especially to those interested in research and development aimed towards women-friendly farm technology. Section 25 to 47 will be discussed by my co-reporter, Elma Oseba. So that's all for my report. Thank you and good day, everyone.